Hey everyone, tonight we begin with a trip into the dark, damp corridors of medieval justice, a place where due process was just a rumor, and being innocent only meant you hadn't confessed yet. This wasn't court as we know it. This was justice served cold, moldy, and possibly by someone with a club. There's a very real chance you won't make it out of this one. So, before you get comfortable, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I'm doing here. And in the spirit of this strange little time travel club we've built, drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I love seeing all the different places and hours our sleepy, sarcastic community comes from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's begin tonight's journey together. Imagine a small medieval town. It smells like wet hay, roasted onions, and nervous sweat. There's no mayoral ribbon cutting, no cheerful music playing. The crowd is gathering not for celebration, but for punishment. Something big is about to happen. You can feel it in the air, thick like soup, heavy like dread. Someone's been accused. Theft, blasphemy, or just being unlucky near a jealous noble's sheep. It doesn't matter. Once your name's been whispered to the right ears or the wrong ones, you're done. And the accused? His name is Lucas. He's 36, a carpenter, and absolutely not having a good week. Rumor says he stole a loaf of barley bread during the last market fair. Was it even bread? Was it even him? Doesn't matter. What matters is that someone saw something, someone else said something, and now Lucas is standing in the middle of the square with splinters in his dignity. There's no defense attorney, there's no legal counsel whispering strategy. Lucas isn't even allowed to speak unless it's to confess. Because in medieval justice, silence wasn't golden, it was suspicious. The trial starts and ends with someone shouting an accusation and maybe someone else nodding. That's it. That's all it takes. Evidence? Oh, how quaint. This isn't a courtroom, it's a show. And Lucas? He's tonight's entertainment. They march him up to the pillory, a large wooden contraption with 2 holes for your wrists and 1 for your head. Imagine a torture-themed carnival ride without the fun or the safety bar. Once you're in, you're stuck, literally and socially. Your name is now that guy who got pilloried. Even if you survive, good luck shaking that brand. Now comes the best part, the audience participation. Everyone's involved. Kids throw turnips, old ladies mumble curses. Someone definitely hurls something that smells like it came from a barn, and nobody's stopping it. In fact, the town official is just standing nearby, arms crossed like he's supervising a pie-eating contest. Spoiler, there's no pie. Lucas tries not to flinch. That only makes it worse. Because weakness invites more. And in this moment, Lucas isn't a man. He's a message. And that's exactly the point. Punishment in this era wasn't just about retribution. It was about spectacle. Fear was currency and humiliation was a tool. Why execute someone privately when you can turn it into community theater? Why investigate when you can intimidate? Even if Lucas didn't take the bread, he probably won't say much in his own defense now, not while dodging stale vegetables and hot spit. He might survive the day. He might even get released. But his life? That's over, in all the ways that count. No one hires a thief. No one marries a pillory man. No one sits next to you in church, so the crowd throws and laughs and then gets bored. Justice in this setting is about momentum, and once the shouting fades, people shuffle off to their dinner tables, forgetting Lucas ever existed. Except Lucas doesn't forget, neither do his bruises. The worst part, this public humiliation is considered lenient, a slap on the wrist, a learning moment, because it could have been worse, so much worse. The rack, the branding iron, the oubliette, that's French for a pit you scream into until you forget your own name. Lucas was lucky, and lucky in this world just means not dead today. And now you see, justice in medieval times wasn't about right and wrong. It was about power and fear, about showing everyone else what happens when you step out of line, real or imagined. We'll continue tomorrow with what happens after the pillory, when things get darker and the tools get sharper. But for now, let that image sit with you. A man locked in a wooden frame, rained on by turnips, while his village chuckles and calls it fairness. Sweet dreams. Welcome back. If you thought Lucas's day couldn't get worse after being locked in a medieval shame box and pelted with insults, old cheese, and social isolation, you'd be wrong. Because in the grand theme park of medieval justice, The pillory is just the teacup ride. Now we're headed for the roller coaster. No seatbelt, no brakes, all trauma. Lucas has survived his time in the pillory. Kind of. His wrists are bruised, his neck stiff, and his pride is somewhere near the mud puddle a goat just peed in. But at least he's alive. That's something, right? Well, don't celebrate just yet, because some crimes, or simply some accusations, warrant more than just public embarrassment. And since trials weren't about facts, but about vibes and volume, your next stop might be the dungeon. Now let's set the scene. A castle or manor, dimly lit by torches that drip wax like nervous sweat. Down a spiral staircase that groans under your footsteps. The air gets colder, wetter. It smells like mold, iron, and old decisions. You reach a door that could have been built by a pessimistic blacksmith with a thing for padlocks. Welcome to the holding cell. Medieval edition. It's not a jail like we imagine today. No beds, no bars, no one phone call. Instead, Lucas is shoved into a stone chamber the size of a pantry. No windows. Just a small slit in the wall where air trickles in like it's being taxed. The floor is hard-packed dirt, occasionally interrupted by a rat or the bones of someone less fortunate. The toilet? You're standing on it and sharing it. In the corner is a pile of straw. That's your mattress. Also your blanket. Also where the last guy may have died. The straw is damp, of course. Everything's damp, including your soul. Lucas doesn't know how long he'll be here. Time doesn't work properly in a place like this. Days blur, meals are inconsistent. Sometimes it's porridge, sometimes it's water with a crust of something floating in it. You try not to ask. He's not alone. Somewhere nearby, another prisoner groans. A woman sobs. Someone sings softly, maybe to stay sane. Or maybe they're not sane anymore. It's hard to tell. Then one morning, or night, who knows, there's a sound. Footsteps. The guards have come, not to release him. No, it's time for questioning. And by questioning, we mean professional-grade coercion. And by coercion, we mean torture. Let's take a moment here. Because in medieval Europe, torture wasn't the exception. It was standard operating procedure. It wasn't just for spies or traitors. It was for thieves, heretics, women accused of adultery, or anyone whose face irritated the local sheriff. Torture was considered a legitimate way to extract truth. Which is ironic, considering that nothing makes you confess to things you didn't do quite like the promise of more broken bones. Lucas is dragged to a larger room. Bare stone walls, one flickering torch, and in the center, the rack. You've probably heard of it. A table with rollers at both ends. You lie on it, face up, arms tied to one end, legs to the other, then the crank starts turning. Slowly, methodically. And your body, it stretches. Tendons tighten, joints pop. You can feel the architecture of your skeleton protesting every inch. Lucas screams. And that's the point. Not the truth. The scream. Because pain doesn't clarify facts, it silences resistance. The guards don't care if Lucas stole a loaf or rescued it from being burned. They care that he says he stole it. They want a confession to file away, to show the Lord, to post on the town square as proof that justice has been done. And so, Lucas breaks. He says yes, he stole it. He took it, he ate it, he shared it with a talking pig, whatever they want, just make it stop. And it does, eventually. They cut him down, what's left of him. His shoulders are dislocated, his legs don't quite listen anymore, but he confessed. So, job done. He's returned to his cell, and while the pain subsides to a dull throb, something else replaces it. Shame. Helplessness. The knowledge that no one will believe he didn't do it because now he's a confessed thief. And if he denies it, that's just more proof he's guilty. Logic isn't welcome here. This, friends, was not a rare story. Lucas had company, thousands of others, men and women whose only crime was being poor, outspoken, unlucky, or inconvenient. And if you're wondering, what if he really was innocent? Well, medieval justice had a phrase for that. God will sort it out, which, when translated from medieval legalese, means not our problem. So now Lucas waits. For what? Maybe sentencing. Maybe a second round. Maybe someone else to be accused so the crowd forgets him. Meanwhile, his body heals badly. Infection lurks in the untreated wounds. And the guards? They don't ask how he's doing. They just make sure he doesn't die before someone decides his fate. And you, dear listener, you're probably in bed, maybe with a blanket, maybe a snack, hopefully not shackled to a wall in a mildew-scented tomb. Appreciate that. Hug your pillow. Because tonight, we've seen what passes for justice in a world where truth is twisted and screams are policy. And tomorrow, Tomorrow we meet someone for whom the punishment isn't bruises, but branding. Sleep well, if you can. The dungeon breathes, slowly, like something ancient and tired, exhaling centuries of damp sorrow into every crack of stone and every ripple of silence. Lucas, still alive, lies curled against the wall. His limbs ache in new, permanent ways. His joints creak when he shifts, though there's nowhere to shift to. The darkness presses in, not just from the absence of light, but from the weight of knowing this place wants to forget you. And yet, tonight, something changes. He hears iron dragging along stone, steady, deliberate, unmistakably familiar. But the guards aren't here for him, they've brought someone else. Through the gaps in the cell wall, Lucas hears murmuring, chains, footsteps, and a name. One word, whispered like it hurts to say, Eleanor, 24, a widow, someone who once lived quietly, perhaps even happily, in the same town. But not anymore. Now, she's the accused. Not of theft or rebellion, but of adultery. And let's be clear, adultery. In medieval times didn't require passion, scandal, or even proof. A woman could be charged because she smiled at the wrong man, or because a powerful figure thought she was too independent, or simply because she was convenient. To the law, a woman's body wasn't her own. It was property, transferable, condemnable. Eleanor doesn't scream. She walks with small, tired steps. The guards don't rush her. They don't need to. The punishment is already waiting. The branding iron. It lies in the coals now, heating, glowing. A twisted piece of ironwork bent into the shape of a letter, a giant, unmistakable A. A. Not for adultery. Not really. For always, because that's how long she'll wear it. The courtyard is the same one where Lucas was pilloried. Same crowd, too, probably. These events are, after all, communal. People whisper and shuffle forward, not out of anger, but curiosity. It's something to watch, something to talk about over soup and bad ale. Medieval evening entertainment. Eleanor is forced to her knees, her shoulder bared, her hair tied back like she's a cow being branded for auction. She's not blindfolded, she watches it happen, and so does everyone else. The iron comes out of the fire, hissing softly. The executioner doesn't say anything, he doesn't need to. The crowd holds its breath, not from sympathy, but anticipation. And then it happens, a sound that is not just pain, it's existence being rewritten in heat and steel. The iron is pressed to her skin, smoke curls, skin bubbles, and Eleanor makes a sound that doesn't come from the throat, it comes from the spine. The kind of cry you can only make when something permanent is being carved into your life. But no one looks away, because this is not just punishment, this is performance. Branding wasn't designed to correct behavior, it wasn't a second chance. It was a lifelong verdict, etched into flesh for the world to see. You didn't get to move on, you didn't get to explain, you carried your sentence every day in every interaction. And Eleanor, she is no longer Eleanor, she is that woman, the branded one, the one they whisper about, the one people pretend not to recognize in the market but never really forget. When the branding is done, she doesn't collapse, she doesn't beg, she just breathes. Shallow, ragged, but defiant. As if survival is her last act of rebellion, they drag her back to the dungeon. Lucas hears her before he sees her. The guards deposit her in the neighboring cell. She says nothing, neither does he. But in the silence that follows, something shifts. Not a friendship, not a plan, just understanding. Between the walls, between the rats and rot, two people who have seen justice in its rawest, most unapologetic form breathe in rhythm. That's all they can do. That, and remember. Eleanor's shoulder is wrapped in linen, dirty, thin. It absorbs the blood until it can't. The wound seeps, infection lurks. There are no doctors here, no ointments, just time and luck, and neither are generous. She doesn't sleep much, the pain won't let her. Sometimes she hums softly, not a tune, just a tone like a lullaby meant for no one in particular. Lucas listens, and slowly the reality settles in. This isn't justice, this is memory management. Like, the system doesn't want to reform you, it wants to mark you. Eleanor's brand isn't for her, it's for everyone else. A warning, a threat, a promise. Step out of line and this could be you. It works, because fear is efficient, but it's also cruel. Lucas closes his eyes, he sees Eleanor's face. Not the moment she was branded, but before, when she stood still, unflinching, unbroken. That's what stays with him. That and the fact that no one intervened. Not the town priest. Not the merchant who once sold her candles, not the neighbors who used to nod in passing. Because that's how medieval justice wins, not just by hurting people, but by convincing everyone else to watch. As the hours pass, the dungeon grows colder. The walls sweat, the rats grow bolder. But Eleanor and Lucas, they are quiet, breathing, existing. For now, that's enough. Tomorrow might bring more pain, more judgment, another letter pressed into someone's back. But tonight, the iron rests. The fire fades, and somewhere in the dark, two people wait, not for freedom, but for the world to forget them a little less. So as you lay in your bed under a soft blanket with your quiet fan humming and your walls free of damp and shame, remember Eleanor, and remember what it cost her to say nothing, to survive. Tomorrow, the punishments escalate. But for now, sleep well, if you can. The dungeon doesn't sleep. It sulks, it sweats, it settles into a quiet that isn't peace. It's exhaustion. And still the air trembles like it knows something is coming. Something worse. Lucas lies in a twisted posture that once resembled rest. He's long past comfort, past hunger, past even fear, which has become more of a roommate than a visitor. He listens to the slow drip of water, to the scratch of a rat along the stone wall, to the occasional breath from Eleanor's cell next door. That, somehow, gives him the strength to stay conscious. Then he hears it. Footsteps. Not the usual slow, disinterested shuffle of guards dropping off moldy bread or scooping up a limp body. These are heavier, determined, announcing. Lucas sits up, or tries to. His back protests. His ribs make a noise that ribs shouldn't make. But he cranes his neck toward the corridor. They're bringing in someone new. Through the flickering torchlight comes a man. Not stumbling, not weeping, but dragged. His boots scrape against the stones. His clothes, once velvet, are now torn and stained. There's a gold ring still clinging to his pinky, like it hasn't gotten the message yet. His name, whispered later by one of the guards with something between fear and glee, is Edgar. 41 years old. A minor noble with just enough land to matter and just enough enemies to be dangerous. The accusation? Treason, of course. In medieval Europe, treason was a wonderfully flexible term. It could mean plotting against the king, or owning a book someone didn't like, or disagreeing at the wrong dinner table. Edgar's crime? He spoke too freely about grain prices and loyalty. He shook hands with the wrong merchant. He didn't smile enough at the Lord's nephew. Now, he's here. The guards dump him across from Lucas into a cell with nothing but damp straw and the echo of every other man who didn't come back out. Edgar doesn't beg, yet. He curses, threatens, declares his bloodline, names people he's related to, as if the stones care. Lucas watches, quietly, because he already knows what Edgar doesn't. None of that will help. By morning, or what passes for it in a place where light is a rumor, the guards return. They don't speak. They don't have to. They carry something that shouldn't exist in a world pretending to be civilized. The rack. Imagine a table designed by someone who hated the concept of joints. Long, wooden, splintered. 2 rollers, one for the wrists, one for the ankles, leather straps, metal pins, and the crank. Always the crank. They place it in the middle of a chamber, public, of course. Not for the town, but for the officials. Torture wasn't done in secret because it was shameful. It was done in front of others because it was useful. Edgar is hauled out of his cell, still shouting, still defiant. The guards strap him down, arms above, legs below. He shouts about the law, about honor, about evidence. The torturer, an old man with forearms like tree trunks and the expression of a bored butcher, tightens the straps, checks the gears, and without a word, begins to turn. The rack moves, slowly, grating. Not like a scream, but like something winding up for a scream. Edgar holds on, for the first crank, then the second, and on the third he breaks. Not physically, not yet, but his voice does. He screams, not a cry for help, a cry from somewhere deep where the human body realizes it was never meant to be pulled apart like taffy. Lucas flinches. He's seen pain, he's had pain, but this is methodical unraveling. The crank turns again. Pop, shoulder, snap, knee. Edgar starts talking about things he didn't do, about plots that never happened, about rebels he's never met and letters he's never written. He names names, confesses to crimes no one asked about. He says anything they want him to, because that's the goal. Not truth, not justice, just surrender. Eventually, the crank stops. Edgar doesn't move. He's not unconscious. He's still, like something inside him gave up and quietly left the room. The torturer checks his pulse. Satisfied, the guards nod. Job done. They carry him, not drag now, but lift, like a sack of wheat, back to his cell. He doesn't resist. He doesn't even blink. Lucas watches them pass, and sees what medieval justice is really built on. It's not laws, it's performance. The rack wasn't for Edgar, it was for everyone else. To remind them this can happen to anyone, that guilt is a formality, that silence is treason, that pain is policy. Back in the cell, Edgar doesn't speak. He breathes, barely. Lucas thinks to say something, but what could he say? Nothing could reach that deep, so he turns to the wall, the one between him and Eleanor. He listens. She's breathing too. 3 people now. 3 examples, 3 warnings. The dungeon is quiet again, but it's not peace, it's a pause. And that's worse, because everyone in this place knows one thing. They're not done. They're just getting started. There are nights when the dungeon screams. Tonight is not one of them, and somehow that makes it worse. Because when there are no screams, it means something is building. A silence that waits, that watches, that sharpens itself on the stone floors and iron locks. Lucas knows this silence. It's the kind that creeps under your skin and starts whispering possibilities. None of them good. Edgar hasn't spoken since the rack. Not a sound, not a sound. His breathing is shallow but steady. And Lucas imagines the nobleman lying there, limbs pulled in strange directions, eyes fixed on the ceiling, seeing nothing. Not because he's asleep, but because he's somewhere else, far away from the dungeon, far away from himself. Eleanor, in the next cell, occasionally shifts her weight. Quiet movements, careful, like someone trying to exist without disturbing the air around her. Her wound still hasn't healed. The branded A is an open, weeping thing on her shoulder. But there are no doctors here, only time, and time in this place is cruel and slow. Lucas lies awake. He's been waiting for food, for release, for an ending. But tonight, something different arrives. The guards roll in a brazier. It's small, iron, squat. They place it in the center of the dungeon corridor, just outside the cells. Inside, coals glow red-orange. The heat cuts through the chill of the stone walls like a knife through fog. It isn't here for warmth. Lucas knows that immediately. He cranes his neck to look, and that's when he sees it, resting beside the brazier on a wooden rack, a branding iron. He's seen one before, used on Eleanor. He remembers the hiss, the smell, the way the air seemed to collapse around the sound of her scream. But this one is different. This one isn't shaped like a letter. It's shaped like a crescent, the mark of a thief. Lucas feels the shift before the guards say a word. He sees the way they glance at each other, the slight nod, the subtle movement of hands toward keys and shackles. And then, his cell door creaks open. He doesn't struggle. There's no point. The last time he resisted, they dislocated his shoulder and left him face down in straw for 3 days. Pain has taught him to calculate. And this equation ends with fire, either way. They grab him under the arms, lift him, not gently, and drag him down the corridor. Past Edgar, who doesn't stir. Past Eleanor, who turns her face toward the wall. Past the brazier that waits like a hungry dog. They take him outside, not to the main square. This time it's a side courtyard, smaller, quieter, just stone walls and dark sky and the scent of something about to burn. The brazier has been moved here ahead of them. The iron rests inside it, now glowing white at the tip. Lucas is shoved to his knees. A guard takes his arm and pins it to a flat stone table. Another presses on his back to keep him still. The third guard, the one holding the iron, says nothing. He simply lifts it, checks the glow, and nods. Lucas looks away. He's not afraid of the pain. Not anymore. He's afraid of what the pain will mean. He braces. The iron comes down. It touches the soft flesh just below the elbow, and the world becomes heat. It's not pain, not immediately. First comes the sound, the hiss of flesh meeting fire, like meat on a skillet. Then the smell, burned skin, and something primal that humans aren't meant to smell from their own bodies. Then the pain. It doesn't scream. It roars. It floods every nerve, every cell. A tidal wave of agony that drowns thought, breath, memory. Lucas doesn't cry out, not because he's brave, but because the pain knocks the scream out of him before it can escape. When it's done, the iron is lifted. The mark remains, an angry red crescent already blistering, a symbol that says, this man steals. No matter what he does from this day forward, no matter what he says, what he builds, who he helps, he will always be a thief. The mark will outlive his name. The guards let go. Lucas slumps forward, forehead against stone. He doesn't pass out, not quite. He hovers on the edge of unconsciousness, floating in the heat haze of his own flesh. Eventually, they pull him back to his feet, drag him, barely conscious, back down the corridor. The cells greet him like old friends. They throw him into his corner. He lands on his branded arm. His body jerks and the pain blooms anew. He lies there, breathing in gasps. He doesn't curse, doesn't cry, just breathes. Minutes pass, then a voice, soft, almost a whisper. Eleanor. I'm sorry, she says. He doesn't answer, but he hears her, and for a moment, that's enough. Later, how much later, he can't tell. He finally looks down at his arm. The mark stares back, bright, angry, forever. He touches it once, lightly, just to feel the reality, and then he does the only thing left to do. He closes his eyes and waits. Because in this place, even agony has a schedule, and tomorrow, there's always room for more. In the dungeon, time is no longer marked by days or hours, but by screams. And tonight, time moves quickly. Lucas sits against the wall, his branded arm cradled gently against his side. The burn has become a dull, permanent pulse, no longer fire, but not quite memory either. It reminds him constantly that he no longer belongs to himself. He is branded, named, reduced. Across the corridor, Edgar lies still. His limbs are stiff. His silence has changed from trauma into something colder, resignation. He does not blink when rats scurry across his feet. He does not flinch when the guards pass. He has left in some way. He is here only in body. And Eleanor, she hums. Soft, almost inaudible. A melody that isn't happy but isn't sad either. Just present. It fills the dungeon in a way that doesn't fight the darkness but makes space for it. The kind of sound you'd expect to hear while waiting for the end, and somehow finding comfort that it hasn't come yet. Then chaos. Not in the dungeon, but above. Boots, metal, shouts. The clatter of armor and orders bark too quickly. Something's happened. Something big. Lucas straightens, so does Eleanor. Her song cuts off mid-note, and then, through the corridor's echo, they hear him. A voice. Young. Desperate. Loud in the way only the truly panicked can be. I'm not a spy, I swear it! I'm not! The voice belongs to a new prisoner, dragged through the iron door like a sack of wheat that talks too much. His name, shouted in protest, is Gianni. He's 33, a mercenary. Foreign-born, probably Italian, based on the lilt of his vowels and the way he spits every word like it's trying to escape. But none of that matters, because Gianni is foreign. That's the only detail the guards seem to care about. And in this world, being foreign is almost the same as being guilty. He's accused of espionage. No trial. No evidence. No one asking if he can even read. They shove him into the cell furthest from the others. Lucas can't see him, but he can hear everything. Gianni doesn't go quietly. He curses, pleads, demands to speak to someone, anyone in charge. He names soldiers, offers bribes. At one point, he even tries to recite a prayer, but forgets the words halfway through. It doesn't matter, because medieval justice isn't about who you are. It's about what they need you to be. And tonight, they need an example. Within minutes, the guards are back. They open Gianni's cell. There's no formality, no list of charges, just rope, iron, and intention. They're using the strappato, a tool that looks deceptively simple. A pulley, a rope, and a ceiling beam. They bind Gianni's arms behind his back, wrists touching shoulder blades in the worst possible angle. Then they attach the rope, hoist him slowly into the air. At first, there's silence, then a pop, then the scream. Lucas flinches. He's heard screams before, his own, Eleanor's, others. But this one, it's raw, wild. It's the sound of a body saying, this is wrong. This shouldn't be possible. Gianni is lifted, then dropped. Not all the way, just enough, the kind of drop that doesn't kill you, just ruins you. His shoulders dislocate. The tendons in his chest snap like overstretched cloth. He screams again, this time in his own language, something fast, beautiful. Terrified, they do it again. Up, down, up, down. Lucas can't see the pulleys, but he can hear the rhythm. It's mechanical, like someone tightening a wind-up toy. Only the toy is human, and the crank never stops. Eventually, Gianni begs. He confesses to things no one even asked. He says he was hired by spies, that he's seen maps, that he's poisoned wells, that he's a demon, if that's what they want to hear. The truth is no longer relevant. Only compliance matters. Eventually, they let him drop. For real this time. He lands like a pile of firewood. Not dead. Not yet, just broken. His breathing is uneven. He coughs something wet. One of the guards kicks his leg. No response. Satisfied, they drag him back to his cell. Lucas listens to it all, every echo. His branded arm throbs in sympathy. In rage, he says nothing. He has nothing left to say. Hours pass, maybe minutes. Hard to know. Eventually, he hears movement from Gianni's cell. Not words, just breathing. Fast, shallow, and then crying. Not loud, not theatrical, just real. And somehow, that's the worst part. Lucas closes his eyes, tries to block it out, but you can't unhear a body breaking. You can't unfeel the scream of someone who didn't deserve it, and you can't escape the truth of this place. Pain is the only language, and they make sure everyone learns to speak it. Some silences are peaceful. This one is not. This silence carries weight. It presses against the stone walls of the dungeon, curls around the broken bodies lying inside it, and squeezes tight. It isn't the absence of sound, it's the waiting between verdicts. Lucas is awake, though every bone in his body begs him not to be. His branded arm is inflamed again, hot with infection. The skin has gone from red to a mottled purple. The pain is constant, predictable, familiar. Across from him, Edgar hasn't spoken since the rack. He eats only when food is forced into his hand. He drinks when it's poured down his throat. His mind is somewhere else now, far beyond stone and straw. Next door, Eleanor hasn't hummed in days. Her voice is gone. Not from screaming, she never screamed, but from withholding, from conserving. Her silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. She's holding herself together stitch by stitch, breath by breath. And Gianni? He hasn't moved since the strappado. His breathing is shallow. Lucas isn't sure if he's unconscious or simply too broken to protest the agony still twisting through his dislocated limbs. No one comes to help. No one comes to end it. Then, the door, the heavy one. It groans open, dragging iron across stone. Lucas flinches. Every time it opens, someone loses something. Blood, dignity, life. But this time is different. This time the guards aren't carrying a prisoner. They're carrying a chest. Wooden, reinforced with metal. About waist high, the kind of thing you'd expect to see on a merchant's wagon, not in a dungeon that smells like mildew and despair. They set it down with a thud. One guard opens it. Inside, scrolls. Dozens. Documents sealed in wax, tied in ribbon, and organized with terrifying precision. Lucas watches as the guards pull them out. They begin reading names, one by one. Each name is followed by a crime. Each crime followed by a sentence. No trial, no context. Just cold declarations issued by someone far away who will never smell this place, never see the blood on these walls. The first few names are unfamiliar. A woman accused of harboring a fugitive, sentenced to branding. A man convicted of blasphemy, set to lose his tongue. Then, Lucas. Lucas of Greyhill, a guard announces. He pauses for effect. Charged with theft of public goods. Sentence exile. Following clerical inspection. Lucas blinks. Exile? He almost laughs. Almost. After everything, after the pillory, the rack, the branding. But no, not yet. That, following clerical inspection, a loophole large enough to stuff a new round of torture through. It means they're not done with him, not until the priest signs off, not until they've tested his soul for corruption, which usually means confession, tears, possibly leeches. But it's not death. That's something. Next, Eleanor. The guard clears his throat. Eleanor of Ashmore, charged with adultery. Sentence, indefinite detainment, pending spiritual review. Lucas closes his eyes. Pending spiritual review. That's worse than exile. It means being passed from dungeon to cloister, interrogated by monks in dimly lit chapels, forced to kneel for hours, recite prayers until your voice gives out, be judged not just by men, but by men pretending to be God. It means suffering with extra guilt sauce. It means never knowing when or if it will end. Then comes Edgar. No pause this time. Edgar of Marhold, charged with sedition. Sentence, execution by hanging. Simple, brutal, final. No room for inspection, no review. They're killing him. Lucas looks across the corridor. Edgar doesn't respond. He's lying in the same position he's held for days. Either he didn't hear it, or he already knew. The guards don't care. They roll up the scrolls, return them to the chest, lock it, and leave. No explanations, no farewells, just a door closing behind them, sealing the future inside 4 crumbling walls. Lucas lies back against the stone. He stares at the ceiling, tries to process what exile means. It's not freedom. Not really. It means being marked, cast out, watched, branded not just in flesh, but in memory. He'll be the man people whisper about when he walks into a village. The man with the crescent scar. The man no one hires. The man people blame when anything goes missing. And Eleanor, she'll be in limbo, caught between verdicts, neither condemned nor released. And Edgar, his story ends soon, very soon. Lucas doesn't speak, but then Eleanor does. Soft, barely audible. When? A single word. It could be a question about Edgar's sentence, about her own fate, about Lucas's so-called exile, Or it could be something else entirely. Lucas doesn't know, so he replies the only way he can: soon. And in that one word, he gives her everything he has left: hope, fear, resignation, a promise he might not be able to keep. The dungeon falls silent again. Outside, the sky darkens or brightens. No one can tell. And tomorrow, one man will die, one may walk free, and one will be left to wonder if God is watching or just looking away. The moment the word approved is spoken, something shifts, not just in the air, but in Lucas himself. It's a strange feeling. You'd expect relief, elation, some sense of release, but instead, there's a heaviness. Approval isn't freedom, it's a label. Like the brand on his arm, only now it sits in the space between his shoulder blades, unseen but always present. This man has been judged, this man has survived. Barely. Lucas is returned to his cell without ceremony. No congratulations. No keys handed over. No speech about redemption or second chances. Just a door slamming shut, the clank of a lock, and the cold embrace of stone. He collapses into the straw. His clothes are still damp from the basin. The oil in his hair makes his scalp itch. His skin is bruised from the questioning, not from blows, but from the way they stared at him. Like they could see sin under his skin and were disappointed it wasn't more dramatic. Across the corridor, Eleanor watches him. She doesn't say anything at first, she just sees him. And Lucas, even with his eyes closed, feels the weight of her gaze. It's not judgment, it's not pity, it's recognition. The look you give someone who's walked through fire and come out with their clothes still smoldering. Eventually she speaks. What happens now? Lucas doesn't know. He doesn't even pretend to. But after a moment, he answers anyway. They'll take me out. Somewhere. Where? He shrugs. Wherever people go when they're not wanted, but still breathing. That gets a quiet, dry laugh from Eleanor. It's the first laugh he's heard in weeks, maybe months. And somehow, it's worse than crying. A few hours pass. The guards return. They say nothing. But this time, they come with more than shackles. They come with a robe, plain, gray, scratchy wool. It's the uniform of the exiled, not a prisoner's rags, not a free man's tunic, just a walking confession. Lucas is ordered to change. He does. Slowly. Every movement sends aches through his joints. His back screams. His arm, still branded, protests violently against the rough fabric. But he says nothing. There's no point. When he's done, the guards open the cell. They don't shackle him, just gesture. This way. Lucas turns back just once, looks at the cell, at Eleanor, at the space where Edgar used to lie, at Gianni's cell, still silent, and he nods. Once, then he walks. No fanfare, no last words. Just footsteps echoing in a corridor too used to endings. The halls above are brighter, but not by much. Torches burn higher, there's wind, the scent of pine in the air, and then daylight. Real daylight. Lucas blinks against it. It's pale. Washed out, cloudy, but it is the sun. And after all this time, it feels foreign, like something he once knew but now mistrusts. The guards lead him through the gates, past the outer walls, across the moat, and then stop. They point. That way. Lucas nods, takes a step, another, and then he hears it, the gate slamming shut behind him. He doesn't look back, because the sound tells him everything. He's not being watched anymore. He's been released. No, not released. Unclaimed. The road stretches out ahead, muddy, empty, flanked by hills and wind. No signposts, no destination, just distance. Lucas walks. Every step hurts. But there's no choice now. Each footfall is a kind of resurrection. He has no money, no food, no plan. Only the robe, the brand, and the knowledge that he is somehow still alive. People will ask what happened to him. They will look at his arm. They will judge. He will lie, or he will tell the truth, or he will say nothing. But he will walk, because exile is not the end. It's just a different kind of sentence. And this one might never end. Exile isn't an escape, it's just a new version of captivity, one without walls. Lucas walks. There's no destination, no map, just a road that curves and splits and weaves through hills that don't care who he is. The robe itches, the wind bites, and every person he passes stares first at his face, then at his arm. The mark is healing, poorly. The skin is raised, the edges jagged. When the wind hits it, it stings. But it's not the pain that makes it hard to bear. It's the recognition. The way people recoil. The way their eyes flick from curiosity to fear to judgment in a single blink. Thief, outcast, trouble. He tries not to meet their eyes, keeps his head down, keeps moving. The first village doesn't let him in. A boy with a wooden stick blocks the path like a toy soldier defending a castle. We don't take brands, he says. Lucas tries to speak, but his voice is hoarse. He hasn't used it for real conversation in weeks. He just nods, turns around, walks until his legs ache, then walks more. The second village is worse. They let him in, but not for kindness. He's given work, digging ditches, hauling stones, paid in scraps, watched constantly. One night, a pig goes missing. Lucas wakes to a pitchfork at his throat. "You have the mark," the farmer growls. "That's all the proof we need." Lucas doesn't argue. He just leaves. Better to be hungry than hanged over someone else's bacon. Days blur. Nights are colder. He sleeps under trees. Serves in barns, once in the hollowed-out trunk of a dead tree that smells of rot and fox urine. He eats what he finds, roots, wild onions, the occasional stolen egg when no one is looking. And every night, the same thought returns. I survived the dungeon for this, but then he remembers Edgar and Gianni and Eleanor, and he walks on. One morning, he stumbles upon a chapel, small, weather-worn, hidden in a grove of ash trees. He enters out of desperation, not for salvation, but for warmth. Inside, a fire crackles. A woman in gray robes stirs a pot over the flames. She turns, sees the brand, doesn't flinch. She nods toward the fire. "Sit," she says. Lucas does. He waits for the questions, the judgment, the pitchfork. None come. She hands him a bowl of stew. Hot, thin, but real. He eats carefully. When he finishes, he finally asks, "Why?" She shrugs. "You looked like you needed food more than damnation." Lucas almost laughs. Instead, he says, "I've been called a thief, a liar, worse." She looks at him and smiles. "You probably are, so am I." He stays one night, then two. Helps with wood, water, mending the broken fence. No one asks about the mark. No one cares. But he knows he can't stay. Not because he's not welcome, but because he doesn't know how to stop moving anymore. The road has become a habit, a scar that stretches through the land like his own. So on the third day, he thanks the woman. She gives him bread and a small, chipped knife. "You'll need it more than I will," she says. He walks on. Something's different now. He still has no destination, still sleeps under branches and wakes to the sound of crows. But the weight on his shoulders is lighter. Not gone, but lighter. He begins to speak again, to himself, to the trees, to the ghosts of people he left behind. "Eleanor," he says one night, staring at the stars, "I hope you're free." "Gianni," he mutters the next day, "if you can still speak, tell someone what they did to us." And Edgar? He doesn't say Edgar's name aloud, because it deserves more than wind. Eventually, he reaches a crossroads, a real one, with signs. One points north to a town he's never heard of, another south to the sea. The third, east, back toward the place he came from. He stares at that one the longest, then turns away, heads west, because exile isn't about running, it's about continuing, and he's not done yet. There's a rhythm to wandering. At first, every step feels uncertain, like walking through fog, but after a while it settles into a kind of music. One foot, then the other. Dirt under heel, sky above, hunger like a drum beat in your belly. You stop noticing the pain, you start noticing the land. Lucas has been walking for weeks now. The robe is fraying at the sleeves. His boots, gifted by a silent farmer who only nodded when he offered to chop wood, are scuffed but holding. His branded arm is healing into a permanent map of raised skin and ugly memory. But he walks with more purpose now, not towards something, but away from the version of himself who flinched at shadows. One morning, the road narrows. Trees lean in on either side, oak ash tangled with brambles. The air smells like damp earth and something sharp like metal or burnt herbs. Then, movement. Ahead on the trail, two figures, standing still, watching. Lucas slows. He's learned by now. Stillness in the wild often means choice. Predators don't always pounce. Sometimes they wait, measure. The taller figure steps forward. A woman, leather jerkin, bow slung over her shoulder, eyes sharp as broken glass. "Name?" she asks. Lucas hesitates. His name has cost him before. He chooses silence. The second figure, younger, grins. A blade flashes briefly at his hip. "Not talkative. Might be a thief," he says. The woman frowns. "That mark on your arm?" Lucas nods once. "Yes." She raises an eyebrow. "And you're just announcing it?" He shrugs. "It's not exactly a secret." She stares at him a moment longer, then says, "Come." Not a question, a command. He follows, because people who ask questions in the woods tend to be part of something larger. And Lucas? He's ready to stop walking alone. They lead him to a camp. Not large, maybe a dozen people. Hidden in a hollow surrounded by thick brush. Smoke rises from a central fire pit. Meat sizzles, there's laughter, suspicion, and weapons. So many weapons, swords, axes, spears that look handmade but lethal. The woman turns to him. You eat? Lucas nods. A bowl is handed to him. Stew again. Thicker than the chapels. Spicier. He eats. No one says much, but they watch. Always, they watch. After the meal, the woman sits beside him. Name's Sarah, she says. Lucas nods. Lucas? Greyhill? He stiffens. She smirks. We hear things. Of course they do. She points to his arm. They brand you for stealing bread or secrets? Lucas looks at the fire. Both. She laughs, not cruelly, just knowingly. We've got room for both, she says. He doesn't ask what they are, because he's starting to guess. This isn't a band of thieves. Not just thieves. It's a camp of the unwanted. Runaways, rebels, survivors, and people like him. Over the next few days, Lucas stays. He works, chops wood, sharpens blades, helps mend a tarp before a storm. No one presses him. No one trusts him either. But trust isn't immediate here. It's earned. One night, Sarah tells him the truth. They used to be part of a rebellion, years ago, before the dungeons were overflowing, before kings started branding dissent. They lost. Now they live in the cracks, scouting, surviving, waiting for something they haven't quite named. Lucas listens, says little, but his chest feels lighter. For once, he's not pretending, not hiding, not begging for a place. He's useful. One morning, Sarah hands him a bow. You'll learn, she says. He does. Poorly at first, then slightly better. He learns to listen to the forest, to read the wind, to breathe at the right moment. He learns to speak again, slowly, not just with words, but with intention. One evening, as the fire burns low, the young man from the trail, Tom, asks, "What'd you really do?" Lucas doesn't answer right away. Then he says, "I confessed to crimes I didn't commit and stayed silent about ones I did." Tom nods, like that makes perfect sense. It probably does. In this camp, everyone has a story. Most of them are ugly. All of them are true, somewhere. Weeks pass. The forest changes. So does Lucas. He's still branded, still walks with a slight limp from the rack, still wakes some nights gasping from dreams filled with stone walls and iron tools. But he is no longer just the man from the dungeon. He's a hunter now. A rebel, maybe. Or something close. One night, Sarah sits beside him. We'll need to move soon, she says. New patrols, new trouble. Lucas nods. I'll go with you, he says. She looks at him, not with suspicion, but with understanding. Then, she says, and tosses something into his lap. It's a knife. Not chipped, not borrowed. New, balanced, etched with a mark that isn't royal. His mark. Now. Lucas holds it. Feels the weight. For the first time in a long time, it feels like his life has weight again, too. The knife stays with him. At night, it rests under his sleeping roll, close to his ribs. During the day, it's tucked into his belt, worn like an extension of his arm. Lucas never had a weapon of his own before, not one made for him. The chipped blade from the chapel was borrowed survival. This is identity. The days blur again, but in a new rhythm. The camp is constantly shifting, never in one place more than a week. They break down shelters in minutes. No fires during daylight. They speak in whistles and clicks when close to roads, where soldiers might be scouting. The air carries news faster than feet ever could. Lucas adapts. Fast. He's lighter now. Faster on his feet. His branded arm no longer throbs with infection. It's hard and ugly, but no longer raw. The pain has faded into function. Sarah trains him further, not just in hunting or navigating, but in listening. You don't fight with rage, she says one morning, as they crouch above a ridge watching a merchant caravan. You fight with memory. Lucas doesn't ask what she means. He understands. The caravan below is guarded. 6 soldiers, 2 archers. Standard, too risky. Sarah nods once and they vanish into the brush. Later, around the fire, someone brings up the king's new edict. More gallows being built, Tom mutters. They're not even pretending anymore. Just lists, names, executions. A woman in the circle asks, "What's the crime now?" Refusing to kneel. No one laughs. Lucas doesn't speak. He stares at the fire until it blurs. He remembers Eleanor kneeling in the dungeon, not out of faith, out of exhaustion. He remembers Edgar never kneeling, not once. And now, gallows are being raised for posture. The forest feels smaller than before. The next morning, Sarah calls Lucas early. It's not a training day. She walks him away from camp, past the traps, past the ash trees, all the way to a cliff that overlooks a wide field. Below, smoke rises. A village is burning. Lucas inhales sharply. Scouts said it happened last night, Sarah says. The people were accused of harboring a deserter. Lucas squints. In the far distance, bodies hang from a makeshift gallows. They made it a performance, Sarah adds. Left the fire going so word would spread. Lucas grips the knife at his belt, tight. Do we know who did it? He asks. Sarah nods. Red Standard, Royal Crest, Captain Roland. Lucas knows the name. A brute, famous for his loyalty and his lack of imagination, the kind of man who follows orders with a smile. Sarah turns to him. We're going to hit their supply line. Lucas doesn't hesitate. When? Tonight. They move quickly. No fanfare, no speeches, just intent. Lucas joins the strike team, 4 of them, including Sarah and Tom. They pack light. Black clothes, soft boots, blades. No bows this time. Too loud. The target is a convoy. 2 carts, grain and medicine moving under light guard. 6 soldiers. Familiar number. Only now, Lucas is on the other side. They wait in the tall grass until the convoy reaches the bend in the road. Then they move. Swift. Silent. Precise. Sarah takes the lead wagon. Lucas moves to the rear. The first soldier turns at the sound of a bird call. Wrong place, wrong time. Lucas is already there. The knife slips in. No shout, just breath. Gone. They take down 3 before the others react. The fight is fast, brutal. Lucas is quicker than he remembers. The knife fits his hand like memory. When it's over, they're panting, alive. The soldiers are not. They don't loot. They burn the carts. Let the smoke rise. A signal, a message. By the time they return to camp, Lucas's hands are trembling, not from fear, from clarity. He's never felt this focused before. Sarah claps him on the back. You've found your place, she says. He doesn't argue. That night, Lucas can't sleep. He stares at the canopy above, where moonlight filters through leaves, and for the first time since the dungeon, he feels dangerous. Not to others, to the system that tried to end him. He's no longer surviving someone else's rules. He's writing new ones. Tomorrow, they'll strike again, and this time, the kingdom will remember his name. There's no turning back now. Lucas wakes before the birds. The sky is pale with that eerie blue just before dawn, and the forest holds its breath like it knows something's coming. He sits up, wipes the dew from his face, and sharpens the blade Sarah gave him. Not because it's dull, but because it's ritual now. Steel against stone, precision, control. A reminder that he decides where the edge falls. By the time the others stir, Lucas is already packed. The mission today is different, not sabotage, not a convoy ambush. It's a message. Sarah lays it out with brutal clarity around the fire, her voice low but unflinching. We're going into the town of Durnlow. The soldiers there executed 3 farmers last week for sedition. Their wives are still locked up. We free them. Burn the records. Leave proof. Tom raises an eyebrow. And by proof, you mean? Names, Sarah says. Guards who signed off. Officials who made it happen. We let the next village know exactly who lit the match. There's silence, not from fear, but respect. Everyone understands. This isn't a hit and run. This is reputation. This is escalation. Lucas nods. He's ready. They travel light. Dark cloaks, oil flasks, rope, 2 smoke bombs. No horses. They make too much noise, draw too much attention. By nightfall, they're perched on the ridge above Durnlow. The town looks calm from a distance. Lanterns flicker in the windows. Smoke rises from chimneys. It could be peaceful. It's not. Sarah points. There, she whispers, the garrison. Square stone building, 3 floors, bars on the lower windows, guard out front leaning on a halberd like he's more bored than prepared. 2 watchtowers, one torchlit, the other dark. Lucas memorizes everything, the streets, the exits, the guards' patterns. Then they move, they split. Lucas and Tom take the back alley, narrow, barely wide enough to pass. Sarah and Cale, new, quiet, dangerous, circle toward the front. The plan is simple. Lucas gets inside through the kitchen. Tom disables the stable hands. Sarah starts the distraction, a small fire near the barracks, just enough to pull attention. Cale unlocks the cells. Lucas moves like a shadow. The kitchen door creaks once. He freezes, waits, no reaction. He slips inside. The room smells of fat and burnt onion. A cauldron still simmers. A knife block waits on the counter. But Lucas has his own tools. He creeps through the hallway. A soldier passes, half asleep, chewing on something from his pocket. Doesn't see Lucas until it's too late. The knife slides under the chin. Fast. Final. Lucas catches the body, eases it to the floor, pulls it into a closet. No sound. Then flames outside. The alarm bell rings. Guards shout. Doors slam. Sarah's fire is working. Lucas moves faster. Down the corridor. 2 doors. He kicks in the 3rd. Cells. Stone, rank with mildew and urine. 3 women inside, faces pale, eyes wide. Cale is already there, working the keys. Lucas nods. Time to go. The women don't ask questions. Freedom makes people move quickly. They slip out one by one. Lucas covers the rear, blade still warm in his hand. Outside, chaos reigns. Guards are rushing toward the fire, shouting, buckets of water, smoke everywhere. No one's watching the rear exit. Perfect, until... Stop! A soldier spots them from the tower. Arrows fly. Lucas yells, "Run!" They sprint into the alley. One of the women stumbles. Lucas grabs her arm, pulls her forward. An arrow grazes his side, white-hot pain, but he doesn't stop. The forest is 20 meters away. 10, 5. They're in, covered, gone. By the time they reach the rendezvous point, Lucas is limping, but the wound is shallow. Everyone's breathing hard, but everyone's alive, and that's what counts. Sarah meets them at the clearing, grins. "We left them a list," she says. "Every name involved in those hangings. Nailed it to the garrison door," Lucas chuckles. "And the fire? Contained. Just enough to embarrass, not enough to kill." She tosses him a cloth. "Patch that up." She nods at his side. "You're bleeding on my forest." He presses it to the wound, winces. "It's not your forest." Sarah raises an eyebrow. "Everything the king claims isn't his, so yes, technically, it is." They laugh. It feels good. It feels earned. That night, around the fire, the rescued women speak. They tell the names of the guards who beat them, the officer who laughed, the one who didn't even bother hiding behind laws. Lucas listens, commits it all to memory. Because memory is a weapon now, he sleeps with the knife under his arm. Not out of fear, but because he knows something has changed. The people are watching, the rumors are growing, and Lucas, he's no longer just a branded man. He's a name whispered in garrisons, a shadow in alleyways, a survivor with purpose. In the weeks that follow Durnlow, everything changes. Not suddenly, not with fanfare, just steadily, like water shaping stone. Word spreads, a garrison burned, prisoners freed, a list of names nailed to the wall like a challenge. No signature, no emblem, just justice carved into wood and fire. Soldiers whisper about it. Villagers pass the story like a secret recipe. They start calling the group the Ash Cloaks. No one in the camp chose the name, but it sticks. Probably because of the way their cloaks look after a night near the fire. Gray, soot-scarred, always ready to disappear into smoke. Lucas doesn't object. For once, being named feels powerful instead of damning. More people arrive. A deserter from the north. A widow who ran after her husband was hanged for owning banned scrolls. A boy, barely 14, who stole food from a tax cart and had a price put on his head. Each one brings more than a story. They bring fuel. The Ash Cloaks become more than a camp. They become a movement. And Lucas, he's no longer just surviving in it. He's helping shape it. Sarah notices. One evening, she sits across from him, sharpening her blade. "You've changed," she says. Lucas pokes at the fire. "So have you." "No," she smirks. "I've always been this charming." He gives her a rare smile. It feels strange, good, dangerous. "People listen when you speak," she says. "That's power, Lucas. Use it well." He nods, but that night, he lies awake longer than usual. Because power, like pain, doesn't arrive alone. A week later, they intercept another patrol. Routine, expected. But this time, the soldiers fight harder, like they've been trained for this exact encounter. It's close. Too close. Kale takes a blade to the thigh. The new widow, Mira, is nearly run through. Lucas saves her with half a second to spare. When it's over, the bodies are buried, but not before Sarah finds something. A map. Fresh. Marked with a red circle around their last camp. Lucas stares at it. Someone new. Sarah nods. Someone told. For the first time since the dungeon, Lucas feels the old cold return. Betrayal. The Ash Cloaks move that night. No campfire, no noise, no goodbyes, just wind and urgency. They make camp miles deeper into the forest where roots tangle and even the birds seem cautious. Mira recovers. Kale limps, but morale tightens, hardens. They trust each other less, rely on each other more. It's a strange paradox. One night, while checking traps, Lucas hears movement behind him. He doesn't speak, just waits. Then, "You were right to suspect," Sarah says. Lucas turns. "About the betrayal?" She nods. "It was the boy." Lucas closes his eyes, not in anger, in disappointment. "He was scared," she continues. "Thought if he gave them a location, they'd lift the bounty." Lucas doesn't ask what happened to him. He already knows. There's no satisfaction in that knowledge, just necessity. And a reminder, this isn't a story where everyone gets to be innocent. The next mission comes with more teeth. An official, Lord Varen, is traveling with a guard of 20 men. He's famous for something: mass evictions in the western provinces. Entire villages cleared for loyal landowners. Men like him rarely leave the capital. But this time, he's moving. Quietly, secretly. The Ash Cloaks find out, and they decide not to let him arrive. It's bold. Some say reckless. Lucas calls it overdue. The ambush is unlike any before. 12 cloaks, silent formation, no fire for 2 nights beforehand. They prep the ground, false tracks, loosened stones, covered pits. They watch for 2 full days, then they strike. It's fast, precise, but not clean. 3 cloaks die. Tom is one of them, an arrow to the throat. Lucas drags him behind a tree, fights with blood still on his hands. When it's over, Varan lies in the dirt, his face frozen in confusion. Like he never believed peasants could do this to men like him. Lucas stands over the body, then leans down, carves a single line into the wooden hilt of his own knife. Not for pride, for memory. Tom, a rebel who never wanted to be one. The Ash Cloaks vanish before reinforcements arrive. They move deeper, farther than before. But the kingdom knows now, knows they're real, knows they're organized, knows they won't stop. Lucas sits by the fire that night, holding the knife. Not shaking, not mourning, just remembering, because the dead don't need statues, they need action. The fire burns lower tonight. Not for lack of wood, there's plenty, but because silence feels heavier now. The flames crackle like bones, casting long shadows on faces that used to laugh more, speak louder. Tom's absence is a hole no one dares name out loud. Lucas sits apart, blade in hand, carving. Each line on the handle is shallow but sharp. He's not counting kills, he's counting costs. Behind him, Sarah approaches. She doesn't speak right away. Then finally, "You should sleep." Lucas doesn't look up. "I will." Sarah watches him, then adds, "You're becoming what they fear." Lucas finally looks at her. "I thought that was the point." "It is," she says, "but fear, it cuts both ways." They leave it at that. Sleep comes late, fitful. Dreams are thick with fire and arrows and the gurgle of someone dying far too young. When morning breaks, they bury what's left of Tom's gear. Sarah says nothing, but she lays a sprig of ash leaf atop the grave. Ash for fire. Okay, ash for roots, ash for memory. Lucas doesn't ask if it's tradition. He just kneels beside her and promises quietly that Tom's name will not disappear. Later, news arrives, not from a messenger, but from the forest itself. A merchant, half mad with fear, stumbles upon the camp's outer trail. They don't kill him, they listen, and what he says changes everything. The king has issued a decree, he pants. Rewards for information, triple for anyone who brings a branded rebel alive. He doesn't know who he's talking to. He doesn't see the way Sarah stiffens, or the way Lucas's fingers curl around his knife. "What else?" she asks. The man trembles. "They're building a prison, a new one, outside of the capital, for you people." Lucas exchanges a look with Sarah. "We people," he echoes. The man pleads. "I didn't mean, look, I didn't tell anyone. I just ran." Sarah nods. "Keep running," and lets him go. The man doesn't stop to say thank you. He just disappears down the path, swallowed by trees. Later, at council, the cloaks sit in a ring. Small fire, big stakes. Mira speaks first. "If they're building prisons just for us, we've stopped being shadows." Kale grunts. "That's not always good." "They're afraid," Lucas says, "and that makes them stupid." Sarah leans forward. "They're making mistakes, overextending. If they move faster than they think, they'll bleed." A murmur of agreement. Then Kale asks the real question. "So what do we do?" Silence. Then Lucas answers. "We go louder." The plan is formed over hours, meticulously, strategically. Not just another strike, a statement. They'll hit the new prison site before it's finished, before the walls are high, before the cells are sealed. They'll leave it in ash, and every village between here and the capital will hear about it. It's risky, it's bold, it's exactly what Tom would have wanted. They move out in threes, scattered, then converging again near the valley where the prison is being built. Lucas rides with Mira and a young scout named Day. Quiet kid, but fast. The journey takes days. Rain falls twice, soaking cloaks and dampening spirits, but no one stops, because this isn't just rebellion anymore, it's vengeance. When they reach the prison site, Lucas studies it from the ridge, a square of half-built stone, wooden scaffolding, maybe 20 guards, a few workers, a supply tent marked with the royal seal. "Burn the seal first," Sarah whispers beside him. Lucas nods. They wait until nightfall. Then the ash cloaks move, like smoke. Lucas slips past the outer patrol, blade ready. He takes out one guard before the man even realizes he's not alone. Mira handles the tents. Oil, fire, gone. Kale and Sarah cut the supply lines, literally. Within 10 minutes, the site is chaos. Guards shout. Flames rise. Lucas breaks the lock on a stockpile cage. No prisoners yet, but tools, ropes, chains. He dumps them into the fire. One soldier tries to rally. He's brave. Lucas respects that, but he still drops him with a clean, fast strike. By dawn, the prison is no longer a sight. It's a message, ashes, footprints, a banner painted hastily in charcoal and blood, "We will not kneel." They vanish before backup arrives, but the smoke will stay for days. As they retreat into the hills, Lucas feels something unfamiliar. It isn't satisfaction, it isn't relief, it's momentum. They're not running anymore, they're leading, and people are watching. Smoke lingers longer than memory. Even 2 days after the prison burns, the scent clings to Lucas's cloak. Char, stone, something sharp like scorched metal and pride. They move fast, back into the high woods, but the forest seems quieter now. Not peaceful, expectant, like it knows the world is shifting beneath its roots. The ash cloaks regroup. No casualties this time. A miracle, or maybe just skill finally catching up to luck. At camp, spirits run high. Someone starts singing. Mira finds wild berries and actually laughs when Kale spits out a sour one and swears like it's been personally cursed. Even Sarah cracks a grin, rare and razor-edged. But Lucas, he's quiet, sitting on a stump watching the smoke still staining the sky. It's not doubt, not guilt. It's strategy. The prison was a blow, yes, but not the final one. They've started a fire now, and fire doesn't stay in one place. Later, when Sarah joins him, he doesn't look up. They'll retaliate. She nods. They already are. Word from a contact. They've started dragging entire families into questioning anyone connected to a branded name. Lucas clenches his jaw. They always go for the bystanders. They want to make examples, he exhales. Then, so should we. She raises an eyebrow. You have something in mind. He does. It's been forming for days now. A list, a place, a plan. There's a fortress east of the capital, small, used mostly for storage and interrogations. It's where they take people who don't break easily. Sarah frowns. How do you know that? Lucas doesn't answer. Not directly, but she sees the truth in his silence. It's where they took you, she says. He nods. Before the dungeon, before the brand. Her voice is low, careful. You want to go back? He finally meets her eyes. I want to shut it down. The mission is dangerous, far more than the prison. The fortress is functional, guarded, walled. But it also holds records. Paper trails, names, orders. If they can breach it, even briefly, they can do more than hurt the crown. They can expose it. 2 days later, they move. A smaller team this time. Lucas, Sarah, Mira, Kale, and Day, the quiet scout, fast as rumor. They travel by moonlight, using deer paths and smugglers' trails. Lucas guides them. He remembers every rock, every bend, every cold shiver that used to run down his spine as the fortress came into view. And when they reach it, nothing has changed, except him. The plan unfolds with surgical timing. Day disables the alarm bells. Kale rigs the supply cart to block the rear gate after entry. Mira handles the guards near the outer wall, non-lethal but firm. Sarah and Lucas breach the archive. It's tucked into the second floor. Stone corridor, narrow stairwell, locked door. Lucas picks the lock. Fluid. The room is lined with scrolls, ledgers, sealed documents. Lucas lights no torch. Instead, he goes straight for the marked shelf. He knows where they keep the prisoner transfer orders because his name was once on one. Here, he whispers, pulling parchment after parchment. Sarah scans. Names. Hundreds. Thousands, Lucas corrects. They bundle what they can. Suddenly, shouts below. Kale's voice. Urgent. Loud. The distraction came early. Too early. Go, Sarah orders. Lucas doesn't argue. They run. Down the stairs, into the courtyard. Chaos. A guard saw something. Called too soon. Kale's wounded. Arrow in his shoulder. Mira's covering him, blade in hand. Lucas sees an opening. He moves. Fast. Slams into the guard nearest Mira. Disarms him. Barely. Another blade flashes. Lucas ducks. Then, crack. Day from the tower. A thrown stone. Perfect strike. The guard drops. Lucas grabs the scroll bag and yells, "Now!" They burst through the side gate, into the trees. No time to look back. By the time they stop running, it's dawn. Kale's bleeding, but alive. The scrolls are intact. They set camp in a hidden hollow. Mira binds Kale's wound. Sarah lights a small flame, just enough for warmth. Lucas sits, pulls the scrolls into his lap, and begins to read. The names aren't just of prisoners, they're of informants, commanders, judges, clerics who approved tortures under the guise of confession. It's not just a weapon, it's a blueprint. They have everything, dates, places, orders with royal seals. Lucas looks up. Sarah's eyes meet his. She nods once. The next phase has begun. No more just burning buildings, they're gonna burn the lies. They don't sleep that night. Not because they're in danger, though they are, always, but because they can't. The scrolls they took from the fortress are more than evidence, they're truth. Layered, raw, damning. Lucas spreads them out on the forest floor like a broken map of injustice. Names, locations, orders, each one inked with the same quiet arrogance, as if no one would ever dare to read them out loud. Until now. Day reads faster than anyone expected, the quietest among them, but with eyes like razors. This one's a ledger of supply redistribution. They seized entire harvest from 2 villages, claimed it was for the war effort. Kale, still bandaged but sitting up now, grunts. Both those villages starved out. We heard about it last winter. Sarah picks up another scroll. This one lists interrogation techniques approved for heresy suspects. Children are on here. No one speaks. Because what is there to say? The kingdom wasn't just cruel. It was systematic. Mira says what everyone is thinking. This is enough to turn people. Lucas nods. Then we don't hide it. They come up with the plan before sunrise. A series of drops. Scrolls, rewritten or copied, left in taverns, pinned to village notice boards, slipped under chapel doors, delivered not with weapons, but with truth. Let the people see the rot themselves and choose what comes next. It takes weeks to organize. Copying scrolls isn't glamorous. Ink is rare. Paper, expensive. But they trade with quiet allies, those who've been watching, waiting, wondering if the ash cloaks were just smoke and stories. Now they know better. Lucas rides north with Mira. Sarah and Kale head south. Day takes the east. He moves like a whisper, and whispers are what they need. Each carries a pouch of copies. Not all of them, just enough. And everywhere they leave the scrolls, they leave one mark burned into wood or cloth. A circle of ash. Nothing else. No names. No demands, just evidence. And a symbol of who lit the match. The impact is immediate. Whispers turn into arguments. Arguments into anger. Small towns start refusing tax collectors. In one village, the magistrate burns the scroll on sight, only for the townsfolk to drag him from his chair the next day and throw it into the fire instead. Another village holds a reading of the scrolls at their local chapel. Afterward, the priest steps down from his post. He was on the list. Lucas watches all this unfold from the shadows. No speeches, no praise, just results. One night, he returns to camp and finds Sarah waiting with news. 2 more rebel bands surfaced, she says. One near the coast, another in the eastern hills. Lucas blinks. Using the mark, she nods. They're calling themselves Ash Cloaks, too. He doesn't know whether to laugh or worry, so he does neither. Instead, he asks, do they know we didn't authorize them? Sarah shrugs. We didn't have to. The truth did. That thought sticks with him. Power is shifting, and not just in swords and fire, it's shifting in perception. The kingdom responds, predictably. Public burnings of scrolls, rewards for informants, a fresh decree. Anyone found in possession of rebel propaganda is guilty of treason. Lucas holds one of the scrolls in his hands that night, staring at the handwriting that condemned hundreds. He wonders how many more names are still missing. One of the new recruits, Taryn, a scribe from a burned city, approaches. We could go further, she says. We could broadcast. Lucas frowns. How? Taryn smiles. There's an old print mill near Delron, abandoned after the last purge. We could take it, restart it. Lucas raises an eyebrow. Make leaflets, pamphlets, booklets, Taryn explains. Something people can keep, share, read again. It's bold, it's dangerous, and it's perfect. Within a week, a scouting party confirms the mill still stands. 2 guards, disinterested, the perfect kind of careless. The Ash Cloaks move fast. Lucas leads the raid. They take them without bloodshed. The guards surrender the moment they see how outnumbered they are. The presses are dusty, the ink dried, but the bones are still there. They clean it out, repair it, and then the printing begins. Lucas holds the first page off the press. Black ink, rough parchment, but the words are sharp, clear, the truth they tried to bury. Beneath it, lists, orders, testimonies, and the mark of ash. By the end of the week, they have hundreds, and they send them out like seeds on the wind. The Ash Cloaks are no longer just whispers in the woods. They're everywhere, in hands, in firesides, in locked drawers passed between trusted fingers. Lucas walks through the print room late one night. He stops beside Taryn, who's inking a new page. Do you think it's enough? He asks. She looks up. If not, she says, we'll print louder. And Lucas smiles, because that's what the kingdom never understood. You can kill a man, you can burn a village, you can even bury a name. But if enough people remember the truth, you can't silence the story. The presses don't sleep. Even at night, the mill breathes. Pulleys turning, wheels creaking, ink spilling like blood from tired hands. The ash cloaks have become more than blades in the shadows. Now they are authors of fire. Lucas stands in the rafters, watching it all happen. Taryn oversees layout. Mira organizes delivery lines. Day, who used to speak in one-word answers, now rattles off names of sympathetic traders who can get their pamphlets all the way to the coast. Sarah returns at dusk. Her cloak is singed. She drops a bag of scorched scrolls at Lucas's feet. From the garrison near Brendhall tried to burn their own records. Lucas opens one. Half the ink is gone, but enough remains to see what matters. Orders, lists, a name. His name. Sarah nods. They know who you are now. Lucas doesn't flinch. I think it's time we stop pretending they didn't. That night, they do something bold. Not just a drop, not just a leak, a broadcast. They send a courier into the capital itself, not with scrolls tucked in boots, with a crate, branded with the ash mark. Inside, hundreds of copies, wrapped in canvas soaked with oil, ready to burn if cornered. But the courier isn't caught, because not every city gate is guarded by loyalty. Some are watched by fear, and fear is starting to change sides. The crate appears the next morning, in the market square, left beside a merchant's cart. The scrolls inside are read aloud by a bookseller with nothing to lose. By midday, 5 different people have copies. By nightfall, it's 50. By the end of the week, it's a rumor with bones. And rumors, once they grow a spine, are harder to kill than soldiers. The capital cracks. Not openly, not yet, but beneath the surface, tremors. Lucas hears about it days later as the report arrives at the mill. People asking questions in the street. Nobles canceling court appearances. A town magistrate arrested by his own guard. We've turned the tide, Mira says that night, eating stew off a tin plate. Lucas nods, but he doesn't smile because he knows tides recede as easily as they rise, and the kingdom hasn't struck back, yet. When the blow comes, it's precise, cruel, personal. A trading post loyal to the ash cloaks, burned to the ground, everyone inside, gone. No survivors, no warning, only a flag planted in the ash, black, with a red crown. No words, just a message. Sarah is the first to speak when they read the report. We pushed them, she says. Now they're reminding us they still have teeth. Lucas stares at the fire, then says, then we show them we have fangs. Retaliation isn't random, it's surgical. They don't burn a garrison, they don't kill a commander. They leak the king's ledger, the real one. Stolen, decoded, and printed within 2 days. Inside, every name on the royal payroll, from generals to stable boys, every generous donation from land barons, every bribe disguised as tribute. Taryn calls it the Book of Shadows. They release it in 3 regions at once. By the end of the week, it's being copied in other print shops, ones they didn't even know existed. The rebellion has outgrown them, and that terrifies the crown. Soon after, Lucas finds a bounty poster with his face on it. It's not flattering. Crude ink, wrong angle, but definitely him. The reward? 10,000 gold marks, dead or alive. He pins it to the mill door, lets everyone see, then writes beneath it in charcoal, if I'm worth that much, maybe I'm doing something right. They cheer. But Lucas sees the worry behind their smiles, because with fame comes risk, with exposure comes targeting, and he knows the kingdom won't stop at posters. He starts sleeping less, watching more. Paranoia sharpens into habit, and then, just as expected, it happens. A raid. Midnight. Explosives under the west wall. 3 soldiers get in before the alarm's raised. One finds the press room, another finds Kale. The third finds Lucas. They fight in the ink room. It's chaos. Blades, spilled ink, smoke. Lucas kills him with a wrench meant for tightening the presses. The sound is quiet. Final. When the smoke clears, 2 cloaks are dead. 1 press is damaged. The soldiers left no insignia, no colors, just wounds and fear. But the presses still work. By morning, they've printed new pages. The title is simple, You Found Us, We're Still Here. Lucas stares at the fresh ink and knows this war has changed shape. They're no longer just rebels in the woods. They're a movement with an address, a name, a cause, and now, a price. The ink never fully washes off. Lucas scrubs his hands in the river until the skin turns red, but the black smudges cling to his nails, the lines of his palms like tiny ghosts of the pages he's printed. The same pages that now circulate through cities, villages, garrisons, through hope and fear alike. He's not just Lucas anymore. He's the man behind the words, the branded rebel, the name on a poster, and it's starting to wear him down. Back at the mill, repairs are underway. Cale's arm is still bound, but he's directing a group of young recruits, two of whom had never seen a printing press before last week, and now operate one with military precision. Sarah finds Lucas at dusk, sitting alone with a mug of cold tea and a knife he hasn't sharpened in days. "You look like hell," she says. He doesn't argue. She sits beside him. "I got word," she continues, "from a contact in the capital." Lucas doesn't react. She adds, "They're holding a public trial, Millionaire, a big one." He looks at her. "Whose name?" Sarah sighs. "Eleanor." The world narrows, the trees seem farther away, the ground loses its weight. Eleanor. He hadn't heard her name spoken aloud since the dungeon, since they were branded, since the day she vanished in the smoke and silence and never returned. "She survived?" he asks, his voice barely audible. Sarah nods. "They caught her in the Eastern Quarter 2 weeks ago. She had papers, propaganda, your face." Lucas swallows hard. "What's the charge?" Sarah says nothing. She doesn't have to. There are only so many charges left for rebels now, and all of them end the same way. "They're making it public," she adds. "It's not about her, it's about you. They want to draw you out." Lucas laughs, but it's dry, bitter. "They finally figured out I care about people." He stands, walks to the edge of the clearing, looks toward the horizon as if he could see the capital from here. "You're not going alone?" Sarah says behind him. Lucas nods. "I know." The next day they begin planning. The trial is 4 nights away. In the main square of the capital, ceremony, witnesses, security. The king wants a spectacle, a lesson, something to remind the people who still holds the rope. But the Ash Cloaks don't believe in ropes, they believe in cuts. They split into 2 teams. Sarah leads the outer diversion, a false fire in the west quarter. Smoke, panic, guards drawn away. Lucas leads the infiltration, not to rescue Eleanor from the stand, but from the cell beneath it. He knows the layout, the guards, the routines, because he once walked those halls in chains. Day creates forged papers. Mira studies the guard shifts. Taryn maps every route in and out of the court square. Lucas prepares the weapons, small ones, blades that don't gleam, ropes with hooks, smoke bombs that won't kill but blind. The night arrives. Lucas is calm, not cold, just clear. He moves through the alleys of the capital like someone born there. He was, in a way. Born the night they broke him, reborn the night he walked away. The square is full. Torches, nobles, soldiers, and in the center, Eleanor, chained to a post, not kneeling, never kneeling. Lucas slips beneath into the tunnels. Everything is where he remembers. The rusted gates, the echoing steps, the door. A guard turns as he approaches. Lucas strikes before the man can shout. Quick, silent. Just like the dungeon taught him, the cell key is heavier than expected. He unlocks the door, and there she is, Eleanor. Thin, bruised, alive. She looks at him with wide eyes. "You're real," she whispers. He kneels beside her, barely. She laughs. It hurts her. He lifts her, supports her weight. They don't talk. They don't need to. Above them, the crowd roars. Sarah's fire has reached the tower. Guards run toward it, away from the cell, timing perfect. Lucas and Eleanor vanish into the sewer, into the ink-dark safety of the old tunnels. They don't stop until the city is a memory. Back at the mill, she drinks warm broth, wrapped in a cloak too large for her. The others give them space. Lucas sits beside her, unsure what to say. She speaks first. "I told them everything." He looks up, alarmed. She smiles. "Everything true." Then she adds, "You saved me." Lucas shakes his head. "No, you stayed alive long enough to let me try." She leans back. "You're not who I remember." He almost apologizes, but she finishes, "You're stronger now." He doesn't reply, just sits there, beside the one piece of his past that didn't burn. The rain comes softly the next morning. No thunder, no wind, just the quiet drip of sky onto leaves, into earth, over the ash-marked walls of the printing mill. It feels like a pause, not peace. Peace is a luxury rebels don't afford, but stillness, a breath between storms. Lucas sits near the doorway, watching the drops ripple across a puddle. He hasn't spoken much since bringing Eleanor back. Not because there's nothing to say, because there's too much. Inside, the mill is bustling again. Mira directs new volunteers. Cale has resumed drills, showing fresh recruits how to disarm with rope and blade. Taryn sharpens a new press plate, a quote from Eleanor's trial, transcribed from memory and already destined for 200 walls by dawn. Lucas turns when he hears footsteps. Eleanor. She walks slowly, but taller than yesterday, wrapped in clean clothes, her wrists still raw from iron. She sits beside him. "They burned my house," she says after a moment. "Not when they took me, after. Just to make a point." Lucas doesn't respond because he knows. She adds, "The neighbors helped them find me." That stings more. He looks at her. "We'll rebuild it." She gives him a tired smile. "I don't want a house. I want the system that burns houses for wrong thoughts to stop existing." And there it is. Not vengeance, not survival, clarity. "You'll speak again," he says. She blinks. "To who?" "To everyone. You're a symbol now." She scoffs. "That's exactly what they wanted me to be." Lucas shakes his head. "No. They wanted you to be a warning. We'll make you a beacon." She studies him for a long moment, then nods. Soft, but sure. They begin that night. Sarah organizes the distribution. Eleanor really writes for the first time in weeks. Her statement is quiet, precise, no dramatics, just facts and fire. A life torn apart for speaking the truth. A courtroom turned into theater. A question at the end just inked bold across the bottom of the page. "If you were in my place, would you kneel?" Lucas reads it in silence, then whispers, "They won't." And they don't. The pamphlets hit every district in 3 days. Couriers are stopped, arrested, beaten. But the scrolls still spread, because others carry them. Children, old women, shopkeepers who pretend not to know what they're holding until the door is shut and locked. Even a noble in the South Quarter who slips one to her stable boy and tells him, "Make sure your mother reads this." Twice. The kingdom panics. They double the reward for Lucas, then for Eleanor. They threaten to burn anyone caught with false writings. So people start memorizing the words instead, reciting them in whispers, scribbling them on walls in coal, singing them disguised as lullabies. You cannot unprint a truth once it has taken root. Lucas knows this, but he also knows what happens next. Desperation, and the desperate are dangerous. 1 week later, it arrives. A direct message, no courier, no stealth. A knight in full regalia rides to the edge of the forest with a white flag and a scroll. He does not enter, just plants the message into a tree, then turns and rides away. Lucas retrieves it, unrolls it, reads it, then reads it again. "What is it?" Sarah asks. Lucas hands it to her. She scans the first line, then stiffens. It's a summons, not to surrender, to parley. The king personally requests a meeting. Not in the capital, but on neutral ground. 3 days from now. No guards, no weapons, just words. The room falls silent. Even the presses stop. Mira breaks it first. "It's a trap," Cale agrees, "or a test of pride." Taryn raises a hand. "Or he's afraid, really afraid." Sarah turns to Lucas. "Well," Lucas looks back at her, at Eleanor, at the prints drying on the line, the new recruits, the branded ones, the scarred ones, the future still forming Kath. "I'll go," he says, and just like that, everything shifts. They meet in the ruins of an old abbey. Stone walls cracked by time, roof long gone, ivy reclaiming the bones of faith. A place once built for silence, now echoing with the weight of history about to be rewritten. Lucas arrives at dawn, alone, as requested. No blade, no cloak, just the brand on his arm and the weight of 1,000 truths in his chest. He waits by the broken altar. Birdsong, breeze, then footsteps. The king does not come in robes, no crown, just a tunic of deep red, gloves of lambskin, and a face that looks more tired than regal. He is older than Lucas expected and colder. "Lucas," he says. No title, no recognition, just the name. Lucas doesn't bow, doesn't nod, just says, "You summoned me." The king gestures to the broken pews. "Sit." Lucas does not, neither does he. There's no pretense of comfort here. "I thought you'd refuse," the king begins. Lucas shrugs. "I considered it." The king studies him. "Why didn't you?" Lucas answers simply, "Because you're bleeding, and I wanted to see what you look like when you know it." The king smiles, thin and sharp. "You think you've won?" Lucas shakes his head. "No, but I think you've started to lose." They stand like that for a while. 2 men, one raised in marble halls, the other in prison-rotten ink. Both marked, both dangerous. Finally, the king speaks again. "You've stirred chaos." "I've revealed it," Lucas replies. "You built it." The king doesn't argue. Instead, he walks to the altar, runs a gloved hand across its cracked surface. "I could have you killed," he says. Lucas smirks. "You've tried." A beat. Then the king turns, his expression unreadable. "I want peace." Lucas stiffens, not because he's surprised, but because he's not. "Peace," he repeats. "With the people you branded, tortured, imprisoned?" The king's eyes flash. "I didn't torture you." Lucas steps forward. "You ordered the system that did." Silence again. Then the king sighs. Not performative, genuine, and somehow that's more unnerving. I was raised to believe order was survival, he says. My father told me every rebellion was a weed to be burned. Lucas doesn't respond, because he knows how that story ends. The king continues. You've built something. I won't deny it. The people listen to you now. They fear me less. Lucas meets his gaze. They understand you now. The king nods. And still I offer peace. Lucas narrows his eyes. On what terms? The king lays it out. An official pardon for all current ash cloaks, a council formed of nobles and rebel leaders, access to royal printing presses for approved publications, and elections. Limited, controlled, but real. Lucas listens, heart steady, mind spinning. Then he asks the only question that matters. And what do you want in return? The king's face hardens. You stop. Lucas doesn't flinch. You want silence. I want order, the king corrects. We can't build a new kingdom on fire. Lucas walks toward him, slow, deliberate, until they're less than a breath apart. Then he says no. The word is quiet, not angry, just final. The king blinks. Excuse me? Lucas steps back. You don't get to dictate the end after writing the first 20 chapters in blood. The king's voice rises. I'm offering you legitimacy. We already have it. From who? Lucas smiles. From the people who stopped kneeling. A long silence. Then the king asks, almost softly, what do you want? Lucas looks past him, at the crumbled walls, the open sky, the place that once held prayers now filled with truth. And he says, I want you to feel what we felt. Not for a moment, for a lifetime. I want your name to carry shame. I want your children to question you. I want your statues melted into plows. I want the next boy branded to know his name will never be erased again. The king's jaw tightens. You'll get war. Lucas nods. We've had war. And with that he turns, walks away. The king doesn't follow. The meeting ends without signatures, without treaties, without lies. Just two men standing on the bones of a dying kingdom, knowing only one of them will walk into the future untouched. When Lucas returns to the mill, he says only one thing. Prepare for the last chapter. War doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It arrives in whispers. Missing scouts, strange symbols carved into trees, a merchant too scared to finish a sentence. It drips in through cracks in the maps, it settles in the bones. Lucas feels it the moment he returns to the mill. The air has changed. It's not fear, it's acceptance. The kind soldiers wear when they've written goodbye letters but haven't sealed them yet. Sarah greets him at the gate. She doesn't ask what happened at the Abbey. She doesn't need to. Lucas nods once. That's it then, she says. It is. They gather everyone by the presses that night. Old rebels, new faces, scarred hands, hopeful eyes. Lucas doesn't speak from a stage, doesn't shout. He just stands at the center and says, the king offered silence, we chose voice. He offered shame, we chose memory. He offered peace, but only if we forgot the truth. He holds up a scroll, one of the originals. The ink slightly faded. The only thing we're forgetting is how to kneel. No one cheers. They don't need to, because when truth settles this deep, it doesn't need applause. It needs movement. Preparations begin before dawn. Weapons are gathered. Messages sent to allies across the provinces. Hidden groups, sympathetic garrisons, even nobles who've begun to see the writing on the wall and realize they're standing on the wrong side of it. They don't plan to take the capital with fire. They plan to surround it with truth. A siege, not of stone, but of words. It starts slowly. A caravan, painted with ash cloak markings, rolls toward the capital gates. Not carrying rebels, carrying scrolls, thousands of them, pamphlets, stories, testimonies, everything the people were never meant to read. The guards seize them, but they can't unsee them. They try to burn the caravan, but copies already spill through alleyways, carried by children, sewn into coats, recited in inns. The city feels different, quieter, watchful, like it's waiting to exhale. Lucas leads the southern push, Sarah takes the west, Eleanor heads east, with a voice like thunder and words the people now chant under their breath. By the third night, the capital is ringed, not with blades, with belief. Lucas camps just a mile out in the orchard of a farm long abandoned after tax collectors bled it dry. He sits under a gnarled apple tree, watching torchlights flicker on the walls. Mira joins him, silent for a while. Then there's a rumor the guards on the North Tower are reading ash papers on their breaks. Lucas smirks. We should charge them subscription fees. She laughs, just once, then turns serious. You think this will work? Lucas doesn't answer right away. Because work is a strange word now. If he means overthrow, maybe. If he means justice, eventually. If he means restoration, not in this generation. But if he means truth, then yes, it's already working. Before sunrise, riders arrive from the northern provinces, not with weapons, with words. Petitions signed by mayors, blacksmiths, scribes, demanding the end of the royal decree against dissent, demanding trials for the branded, demanding change. Lucas reads each one, not because he needs convincing, because every name is a stone in the foundation they're building. The next day, a battalion approaches, royal banners, steel armor, tension coils in every rebel camp. But the battalion doesn't attack. They stop at the riverbank. Their captain dismounts and kneels. Behind him, one by one, 30 soldiers remove their helmets, drop them into the mud, and kneel. Lucas watches stunned. The captain says nothing. He just opens his coat, revealing an ash mark, not burned, painted, but still worn. Later at camp, Sarah finds Lucas staring at the river. She says, "It's starting." He nods. It is. The siege lasts a week, but there's no fighting, just waiting. Inside the city, something shifts. The palace doors close tighter. The markets open later. Posters are ripped down faster than they go up. And then a bell rings. From the tallest tower. Not the war bell, the parley bell. No one has heard it in decades. Lucas doesn't react. He just stands and says, "They're ready to listen." This time he doesn't go alone. He takes Eleanor, Sarah, the captain who knelt, 2 printers, a farmer, a boy who learned to read from ash-cloak scrolls. They walk through the capital gates unarmed. No soldiers stop them, no arrows fly, because sometimes power doesn't fall with a shout. It slips quietly, like a crown melting. They walk into the court, not to beg, not to plead, to speak, and the kingdom listens. The court smells like old stone and wax. Lucas has never stepped foot here before, but somehow it feels familiar. Maybe it's the silence, the same kind that haunted the dungeon, or maybe it's the way every pillar leans like it's holding back the truth. They walk together through the long hall. Lucas in front, Eleanor beside him, Sarah behind, flanked by the farmer and the boy. No guards, just eyes. Dozens of nobles on either side, robed in worry and stitched propriety. Some Lucas recognizes from old scrolls, names he once read while chained, faces that signed decrees in ink as cold as winter. Now those same faces avoid his gaze. At the end of the chamber, the king waits, seated, not on a throne, on a chair, simple, unadorned. He wears no crown. Lucas stops 6 steps away, does not bow, neither does anyone else. The silence thickens, then the king speaks. "You've come," Lucas nods. "We were already here, you just started noticing." A few nobles flinch. The king doesn't. He gestures to a nearby scribe. "Begin the record." The scribe dips his pen. Lucas steps forward. "This isn't a surrender," he says. "It's a reckoning." The scribe's hand pauses, then moves again. Lucas speaks clearly, calmly, not as a warrior, but as a witness. He recounts the brands, the prisons, the burned scrolls, the silenced mouths, the boy who bled in a ditch because he read the wrong words. He speaks for 20 minutes. No one interrupts, not even the king. Then Eleanor steps forward. She tells her story, not with rage, but with precision. What it means to survive a courtroom designed to kill slowly, what it feels like to see your name used as a warning, and still choose to speak. After her, the farmer speaks, then the boy, then the captain who knelt, each voice a nail in the coffin of the old kingdom. When they finish, Lucas turns to the king. "We're not asking for power. We're demanding balance." The king's voice is quieter than before. "And if I say no?" Lucas tilts his head. "You already know what happens." The king nods slowly, then says, "Leave us." Not to Lucas, to the nobles. The chamber empties. Only the ash cloaks and the king remain. He leans back in his chair and says, "You know, I expected swords." Lucas replies, "Words cut deeper." The king exhales, closes his eyes, then opens them, and finally speaks the truth he's never said aloud. "I don't know how to fix what we broke." Lucas steps closer. "You don't have to. You just have to stop standing in the way of the people who can." That's when it happens. The king reaches up, removes a ring from his hand. Not a crown, not a seal, just a symbol, and places it on the table between them. Lucas looks at it, but doesn't touch it. The king says, "You don't need my permission anymore." And for the first time in decades, a monarch willingly releases power. The ash cloaks leave the court in silence, no celebration, just breath. The kind you take when a wound finally stops bleeding. The people outside stare as they pass, then slowly begin to kneel, not in submission, in respect. Lucas stops one, lifts them up, says, "We don't kneel anymore." And the crowd erupts in quiet, a sound like dawn. History doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It settles quietly, like dust after a storm. One day, there are decrees written in blood and fire. The next, there are papers, drafted by rebels who now sit at long tables beside former enemies, passing ink instead of knives. The ash cloaks don't vanish after the king lays down his ring. They evolve. The brand, once used to shame, becomes a symbol of resilience, reclaimed, not erased. Lucas finds himself in strange rooms now. Council chambers, town halls, even classrooms. People ask him questions, not about weapons, about governance. It's surreal. He never meant to lead a country. He meant to survive one. But now the people listen, and that's more dangerous than any army. Sarah becomes the first to refuse a title. They offer her Warden of the South. She laughs and says, "I already served. It's someone else's turn." Mira starts organizing rebuilding teams, volunteers who sweep through ruined towns, clearing rubble, replanting fields, sewing roofs instead of flags. Kale trains a new guard, not to protect a throne, to protect rights. Taryn returns to the press. She prints a new paper, a free one, called The Reclaim. It sells out every day. No ads, no agenda, just truth. And Lucas, he keeps moving. He attends trials, not to interfere, but to ensure they happen. He visits prisons, not to break people out, but to confirm they're not needed anymore. He writes letters, laws, and when he can't sleep, stories for children who were once taught only fear. One morning, he walks through the city without a cloak. No one stops him. A boy selling water hands him a cup and says, "My dad says you helped us." Lucas kneels, not out of ritual, but so he's eye level. "What do you think?" The boy shrugs. "You don't look like a hero." Lucas smiles. "Good. Heroes don't last." The boy grins. "But stories do." And runs off. Yes, stories do. A week later, Lucas receives an invitation, handwritten, from the former king. No title, just a name. Edric. He lives alone now, in the far north, a villa surrounded by old pine. Lucas stares at the paper for a long time, then goes. Not out of forgiveness, but because closure is a currency too few ever collect. Edric is waiting outside. No guards, no servants, just a man who once ruled everything, and now plants his own food. They sit on a bench under frost-wrapped branches. No pleasantries, just wind and breath. Finally, Edric says, "You were right. I built something that couldn't hold." Lucas responds, "You built something that shouldn't have." Silence. Then Edric asks the strangest question. "Do you think you'll be remembered kindly?" Lucas doesn't answer for a long time. Then, "That's not up to me." Edric nods. "No. It's up to people like the boy who gave you water." Lucas raises an eyebrow. Edric smirks. "I read The Reclaim." Of course he does. They part without promises. Lucas doesn't look back. Some wounds close best when left alone. Back in the capital, change continues. The first vote is held. It's chaotic, uncertain, glorious. People argue, disagree, but they choose, and no one disappears afterward. That alone feels like revolution. Eleanor gives a speech on the courthouse steps, the same courthouse where she once nearly died. She says only one thing: we remember, and that's enough. Lucas watches from the back of the crowd. No one sees him. Good. That's how he likes it. He walks away before the applause ends, down a side street, past a wall once used for executions, now covered in drawings, handprints, chalk-written names. At the bottom, in small charcoal letters, "We are still here." Lucas adds one more thing. Not his name, not a slogan, just a simple line. "Tell the next ones how we lived," and walks on. There are no parades, no statues, no golden arches declaring victory. The new world rises quietly on dirt roads and council votes, on handwritten policies and the steady hum of ink drying on freshly printed pages. Lucas wakes early these days, not from fear, but from habit. Years of listening for footsteps, for chains, for keys rattling in the dark have left a rhythm inside him. But now, instead of alarms, he wakes to birds. Instead of orders, he writes suggestions. And people listen, not because they have to, because they choose to. The capital looks different now. Windows open wider. Children play where patrols once marched. The ash mark appears in murals and carvings, not as fear, but as remembrance. A symbol worn on pendants, stitched into coat linings, tattooed in ink rather than fire. Lucas walks past a baker one morning who offers him a roll. Says, "My father was branded. You helped bring him home." Lucas accepts the bread, doesn't speak, because gratitude, like grief, is often best honored in silence. Later, he visits a school, one that used to be a storage house for confiscated books. Now it holds readers, young ones, loud ones, beautifully disobedient ones. A girl raises her hand and asks, "Were you scared?" Lucas blinks, then nods. "Yes. Even when you were brave? Especially then." She grins, tooth missing, and says, "Me too." There's laughter, and learning, and something he never expected to see in these walls again. Joy. He steps outside into a courtyard filled with chalk drawings, circles, names. One line reads, "They taught us to whisper, you taught us to speak." He touches the wall gently, as if to say, "Keep going." Back at the mill, still running, still printing, Taryn hands him a new stack. Legislation, trade reform, new library grants, not revolution, evolution. He signs only half, leaves notes on the others. Too vague. Rework clause 2, ask the teachers. The printer has become a governor. Not officially, but undeniably. That evening, a group gathers under lanterns for a community forum. No guards, no hierarchy, just benches, cider, and a list of topics drawn from a public box. Lucas sits in the back, listens. A woman asks for a road repair in the Southern Valley. A farmer complains about seed shortages. A boy asks if there can be more books about dragons. Everyone nods. Nothing gets ignored. Nothing gets burned. When it's over, someone says, "We should name the road after the boy who started the ash cloaks." Lucas doesn't speak, but Eleanor does. "No." The crowd turns. "He wouldn't want that," she says, smiling toward him. "He'd want the road to be named after the child who first ran scrolls past the guards." Someone else adds, "Or the mother who hid them in her pies." Laughter. Agreement. The road gets no name that night, but 1,000 memories. That's better. Later, Lucas sits beside Eleanor near the riverbank. The moon reflects in soft ripples. She sips tea from a tin mug, offers him some. He declines. She says, "Do you ever miss the fire?" He thinks, "Sometimes. It made everything clear." She nods. "But this," he adds, gesturing to the quiet, to the wind, to the voices in the dark that now speak freely, "this is harder." She agrees. "But worth it." He watches her a moment, then says, "You should run." "For what?" "Leadership." She laughs. "After all this, you want me to go back into politics?" Lucas smiles. "Not back, forward. You're not a symbol anymore. You're a force." She considers it. "I'll think about it." That's enough. Before they part, she says, "And you?" Lucas shakes his head. "I've done what I needed." He doesn't say he's tired. He doesn't need to. She sees it. They hug, tight, brief, meaningful. 2 survivors, 2 builders, 2 names once whispered in fear, now spoken with purpose. He walks home under a sky that no longer hides him and sleeps without checking the door. The grass has grown taller. It sways in the wind like it's trying to forget the weight it once held, but the earth always remembers. Even long after the shouting stops, the boots fade, the names turn to paper, and paper turns to ash. Lucas kneels at the post anyway. A single, unmarked piece of wood, worn smooth by wind and time, standing where so many fell and so few were buried. He opens the small tin box he's carried since the siege. Inside it, time itself. A scrap of the original ash cloak scroll, a stone from the mill's threshold, a thread from a burned cloak, and a name he never spoke aloud, but always carried. He places it all into a shallow hole at the base of the post, covers it gently with dirt, not to bury, to root. Behind him, the fields ripple. He doesn't turn when he hears footsteps. Day speaks first. Still haunting old ghosts, Lucas stands, brushed with dust and memory. "Some ghosts don't haunt, they guide," Day snorts. "Well, your ghosts are on the council agenda. You'll be late." Lucas dusts off his coat. Let them wait. They've waited years for truth. They can wait 5 more minutes. They walk together, down the ridge, toward the town that rose from ink and fire. It's not a capital. It doesn't need to be. The new world isn't built on marble. It's made from planks, brick, sweat, and patience. Banners are sewn from old cloaks, and every meeting hall has a table long enough to seat dissent. They pass a blacksmith's shop where 2 apprentices debate philosophy over molten steel, a bakery where a child draws ash symbols in flour, a library still under construction but already filled with donated books and louder children. When they reach the square, the people are already gathered. No one waits for ceremony anymore. They talk, argue, sit, eat. And when Lucas arrives, they simply make space. Eleanor stands at the front. She doesn't need to raise her voice. When she speaks, people lean in. She reads the names from the final scroll, the one never printed, the one Lucas kept close for too long. It's not just rebels. It's farmers who gave food, children who memorized speeches, mothers who lit signals in their windows, smiths who forged in secret, prisoners who never came back, each name spoken with clarity, not sorrow, honor. Kale, seated near the front with his old bandaged leg propped up, lifts a hand every time she says a name he knew. By the end, his hand hasn't dropped once. Eleanor closes the scroll, looks to Lucas, but he shakes his head. She knows better than to ask again. Instead, the crowd begins placing stones, one by one, a tradition now. A stone for each name read. The pile grows at the center of the square, not a monument, just a memory you can touch. When the sun dips low, lanterns flicker to life. Lucas watches them, one here, another there, soon hundreds. He walks alone through the streets afterward. No guards, no escorts, just the steady sound of life continuing, uneven, messy, beautiful. At a corner, a boy with coal-stained fingers points at him. "You're Lucas." Lucas smiles gently. "I used to be." The boy tilts his head. "What are you now?" Lucas thinks, then says, "Someone who made space." The boy grins. "My mom says you were a fire starter." Lucas nods. "Sometimes that's the only way to see what's left." The boy runs off laughing. Lucas lingers by the mural on the old city wall, once used for executions, now covered in circles, lines, names, and poems written by children too young to remember the war, but still shaped by it. He traces one line: "We are the books they tried to burn." He doesn't know who wrote it, but he knows why they did. Back home, he lights his lantern, sets it on the sill, watches others flicker to life across the valley, each one a promise that the silence is never coming back. He writes letters now, small ones, to towns he's never seen, to rebels who laid down arms and picked up plows, to children who ask him, how did it really feel? He tells them the truth, that fear never left, but neither did courage, that they didn't win because they fought. They won because they refused to forget. His final letter ends like this: "No one will remember us for how many scrolls we printed. They'll remember because we made it safe to read them, and safer still to write your own." He places the letter beside the last candle, then steps outside, looks at the stars, and doesn't count them. He just trusts they're still there, like names, like light, like legacy. So, dear Insomniac historian, you've survived another tale of grime, gloom, and questionable hygiene. Congrats! Your mental endurance rivals a medieval peasant's immune system, and that's saying something. If tonight's descent into history's more pungent corners gave you a chuckle, a shiver, or just a reason to put your own plumbing in perspective, do me a favor. Drop a comment below. Share your thoughts, your favorite horrifying detail, or just tell me what time it is and where you're listening from. I love seeing our weird little history-loving tribe growing across time zones and zip codes. And if this kind of bedtime time travel is your thing, don't forget to subscribe. Seriously, it helps more than medieval prayer during plague season. Until next time, rest your head, close your eyes, and let the screams of tortured barons fade into the distance. This is your host, turning off the torchlight and backing slowly away from the dungeon door. Good night, brave traveler. See you in the next story. And remember, history never sleeps, but you should.